Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. My name is David Palmer. I'm the Information Technology Manager here for the Board of County Commissioners in Polk County. Thrilled that we have as many people attending as we do today. I see a number of people are putting their information in the chat. I'm going to mention it again. If you would, just list your name and your agency. We would really appreciate it. Today is kind of designed around and really became a need when we recently attended a literacy summit, and there were a number of individuals at that had a lot of interest in how do we go about applying for some of the grants that are happening. The Job Act a couple of years back from the federal government put out right at $64 billion to be available for grant funding for a number of initiatives across the United States. Some of these are, infrastructure build out. Some of these are for cabling. Some of these are, for wiring. Some are for connectivity. But this grant specifically is one around digital connectivity technology. It's about the technology that is needed to achieve specific goals and objectives, specifically around some of the at-risk populations in our county. Healthcare, homebound is a good example. We've talked to individuals at the libraries, digital literacy, reaching out to those individuals. A hot topic at that meeting was equipment and connectivity to do translation devices. So there are a number of ways that all of us can apply for these type of grants, and specifically this one. There is $13 million that is going to be issued and given out to participants in the state. When this is all done, the state of Florida has another round of funding coming up called the BEAD, which is the Broadband Equity and Digital Access and Digital Adoption and Use. And that funding is going to be just for Florida in the tune of $1.1 billion. So the good news is even if you don't get your grant, as you go through the application process, which I highly recommend you do, even if you don't get one, there are tons of additional opportunity that will be coming up later this year. So this would even be very good practice. Here at the county, we have taken each one of our grants that we have applied for at this point and continue to consolidate and build upon them and to see if we can get some funding. So what we'll cover today, I'm going to talk first about the eligible entities, who is eligible to apply. We're going to talk about what it covers, and then we're going to talk about the objectives, which is to make digital connectivity devices and equipment, computers, laptops, tablets, all of those type of things to qualified households and or institutions, and to help communities equip multi-purpose community facilities, libraries, senior centers, all of those type of things, education, with the devices necessary to ensure everyone in the state of Florida has full connectivity. There's a lot going on here, and it sounds a little overwhelming, but it is not. Just be patient, and once again, if you have any questions when we're done today, you're going to get the deck. Will be emailed out, as well as will Terry, who will be presenting a little bit later, and myself, our contact information via Polk Vision. So thank you, Tara, for that. So 13 million. It was funny when I first did that. It's called the Capital Projects Fund. I kept getting it backwards with CFP because I was at that point in time heavily into the college football playoffs. But I did correct it for today. But this is the Digital Connectivity Technologies grant. And so we're going to go through that. The grant, how can I find out the details? We'll cover that specificity. Who is eligible, timelines, and deadlines. I was on with the state today. I believe that, and we'll cover that for sure here in a moment, but that deadline is a hard and fast rule. If you get that published at 5:01, and the cutoff is, I believe, March 4th at 5 p.m., if it doesn't matter if there was a delay, anything in the system, and it's in at 5:01, it's out. It's really, really hard to appeal that. So I recommend anybody who is applying, get it in some days before, a week or so before. And then ultimately, we're going to go over how to apply. I'll be talking about that. Then I'm going to turn it over to Terry. She'll be talking to you about how to craft your narratives so that you will have the greatest opportunity for funding. So who is eligible for the Capital Projects Fund Digital Connectivity? Counties, municipalities, nonprofit organizations, and community action agencies. So a good example is VISTI is eligible. The schools are eligible. And you could be eligible for this program even if your agency has other mechanisms that they're leveraging. We talked about the one-on-one program for the schools. If you have a separate program, let's say for digital inclusion of marginalized populations, that is completely separate from the one-on-one. So we could have devices being supplied to a community outside of the one-on-one. So having the one-on-one does not preclude you from being able to apply. Also, as I'm going through this, if you have any questions, if you would, raise your hand. Tara will be kind enough to kind of keep an eye out for me. And for Terry, this is a very interactive session. I don't want it just to be a pure lecture. Please ask questions. As I said before, it's now open, and I'm going to step you through how to get in and do the process. And it does close on March 4th, 2024. The good news is, when I talked to them today, they are planning on turning around this specific project in about a 2-month period. So we should know if this is the beginning of March, by the end of May, 1st of June, we should know who the awardees are, is my current understanding for the meeting earlier today. So how do you apply? You do it on the Florida Department of Commerce Office of Broadband's website, and they actually have an application portal. There's a great big long string there. When you get it, you can cut, copy, and paste it, or I'll flip over and kind of show you where that is. A moment, please. So just a moment ago. This. Oh, it's the email. Where'd you go? One moment. I always have this bad habit of having way too many windows open. Oh, it's the email to Tara. One moment, please. I'll just watch you. There it is. Can you see it now? Yep. No more email to Tara. All right. So the easiest way to do it is put it into your search criteria. Florida Department of Commerce broadband. That's the easiest way to do it. It will bring up a number. The very first of options. The very first one is, it says floridajobs.org. This is handled through the Department of Commerce and that part of the Department of Commerce. Can you get in? There. You'll see the Office of Broadband. Scroll down a little bit. And then you will see, and this kind of applies to all of the grants that are being offered through the Department of Commerce, the Broadband Office. They've created tabs for all the different funding opportunities. These tabs, this is the CPF Digital Connectivity, which stands for the Capital Funds projects. Scroll down a little bit. You'll see the opportunity or the different locations to begin. My apologies for jumping all over the place. But there is the Capital Funds Project Executive Summary. There's the narrative. These things will step you through kind of what the program is and how to apply. But what I recommend everybody do is there is the grant application form under the where it says that grant application window. This is a great tool. This is the application in paper form and PDF form. I highly recommend that you print this off. There may be things that you don't know for sure. It may be your agency's FRN number. I believe having a SAM registration is one of those things. So that would give you the opportunity to search out for those individuals within your agency who would have that information. So I highly recommend you print this off, fill it in as much as possible. One of our internal kind of project leaders on our grant funding, Stacy Morningstar, is in the room with us. You ought to see this document when she is done. She's filling it in. She's asking 1,000 questions. She's chasing people all over the floor, maybe all over the county, to get it filled in, and she does a great job with that. And we would be happy to share her contact information as well, if you would have any questions on how the people to kind of search out to help fill that out. Isn't that right, Stacy?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Nice. She's like, did not know she was getting thrown under the bus like that. So highly recommend you go through this part and start collecting your data to be able to fill out the application well, and it will help you in measure. Once you have that, there's the broadband application portal. Click on that button. What that will do is that will take you into the portal. It'll ask you to log in, and you get the opportunity, if you have never logged in, which probably most of you have not, is click on the not a member, and it will allow you to create your own membership. In my case, we are a member. I am in, and you can go straight into the different opportunities or grant funding programs that are currently available. This is the Capital Funds project. So just click on the Capital Funds piece. The second link that I had in that's in the deck that you'll be getting is the one that takes you straight to that piece rather than having to navigate all the way through. It will take you directly here. There are a number of programs that are out there. This is the Digital Connectivity Technologies Project. It's got the Apply Now button. If the program is closed, which is like the Broadband Infrastructure Program, the button will be grayed out, so you can't click on that. But if you've applied, you can go back and see the status of your application. As you can see, ours, we can because we have applied. Hit the Apply Now. In a moment, it will come up with the landing page of what user you may have available. Gives you a little overview, and then you can begin your application. Click on it. I got it backwards. Then it will prompt you for which user are you. As you can see, I'm David Palmer, as I mentioned earlier, and this is mine. But you can, if you are the primary contact, you can add other individuals to collaborate with you. So some of the individuals in the room already are collaborators on this application business. You guys did get your invitations, right? Okay, just making sure. I'm like, I'd hate to tell them that it's not working. So once you've logged in and identified who you are, what you have to do by at least clicking one of you, then you get to start the application. It's exactly the same format as the paper. So that makes it nice. You can, Stacy, our internal kind of coordinator for our grants, is very blunt to prepare this for us and then kind of send it out to all of us so that we can fill it in. And then she spends a great deal of time doing some cleanup, as does Terry, trying to figure out what I meant or what we were talking about. But they do a phenomenal job that they're able to cut, copy, and paste straight in. It is important to note at the bottom of every section or page, there's a save and resume later or a save and continue. You must do that. If you don't do that, it doesn't retain the stuff you put in, and you have to start all over. We learned that the hard way. So always make sure you either do the save and resume or save and continue. But you can't be halfway on a page, fill it in a bunch, and then exit. You've got to finish that page. Isn't that correct?
It
We've
is.
read into that before.
And just not this page specifically, but some of the narrative fields when you're filling in your narrative, especially if you've done them on paper first or in a Word doc first and you're copying and pasting, make sure you read through it, that it included everything, because there are sometimes character limitations.
Oh, thank you. Terry had asked about that. Thank you, Stacy. As you are hitting some of these narratives, you won't know that until you get to that box. And then in the box, it will say character limitation of 10,000, 1,024. And you find that you're having to do some modifications to be a little more succinct and to make sure that it fits within. So thank you for reminding me. Go ahead, Terry.
So my question is, when you go to put your narrative in those boxes, in those narrative boxes, are you allowed to use special formatting or do you not do that? So for instance, am I allowed to use bullet point lists in there, or do we not know that?
We don't know that for sure. What I can share with you is when we did the BIP, it was strictly text. It did not let us copy, and great question. It did not let us, we had done bulleted lists, created some nice tables, let's say. It stripped out all of that. And usually in a way we did not want it to. Because we had some tables, we had some bullets. So we learned to get a little creative, and even the line feeds or dropping a line counted as part of your character count.
So just make sure
So
to check the
indentations
formatting.
count.
Yep, and indentation. So yeah, check the formatting before you do it.
Paste too.
Yep, as you're doing copy and paste. Thank you. Good question. All right, I'm going to pause there and ask if there are any questions. We have a question in the chat. We have a lot of things in the chat.
The link for the PDF, we're emailing that out, correct?
Correct. The link in the PDF will be emailed out. So the link to the PDF, the link to the website, and how to get straight to the application portal is all that. But thank you. All right. So back over here. Up in, still isn't. This is my share. Right again. And now see if I can share my screen one more time. There's refreshing. Awesome. Thank you. So it'll be, there are the links on how to apply. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Terry Saltzman. She is the Polk County Grants and Special Projects Development Specialist. She has done a ton of these over the years, has been successful in many attempts at getting grants. So she's going to kind of share with us, as you are preparing your narratives, some of the things to kind of look for or look to. And then the other piece that I want to remind everyone is that craft your narrative in a way that tells the story, in a way that you will get your funding. And Terry?
So I was wondering if you could go back to the application portal for 1 second
Sure,
and I'll pull up.
says me, right? Yeah, I tried to back it all the way up. How far did you want me to go, Terry?
All the way into the first page.
Of the actual app or to
To the app.
this one? Okay. Very sold.
David, does any of this stipulate anything about faith-based organizations?
It does not, but it does not preclude it either. Of the 4 that were listed, I took straight out of the grant application.
So I wanted to first just jump into the beginning of the application just a little bit more, only because I have learned a lot of lessons the hard way, and I'm trying to help you guys avoid that kind of thing. So I think the very first thing that I want to talk about is if you have never applied for what's called a UEI number, which is a number that you get through sam.gov, I would encourage you to do that right away before you even begin your application. That number can take up to 6 weeks to get back from the federal government. There's no cost to getting it done, but so if you don't have that number, that is the very first thing that I would have you do is get that UEI. And then the other thing, and we can send you guys that link for sam.gov too, but also you're going to have to, and I think David, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think you've got to know your Florida vendor number. So if you don't know that, David, how can they look that up?
Stacy, how could they look that up?
If we can send that link out as well. It's out, you're gonna have to look it up out on the Florida, like Sunbiz. There's a couple of sites we can use and we'll send that out to you.
Okay. So that's kind of one of the 2 main things you need to do, like right off the bat, is to get those 2 numbers if you don't have them, because you won't even, be able to move past this first page if you don't have a number to put in there. So for right now, I'm just going to put in some garbage numbers just so I can get to the second page of this application. Because I think there's something on the second page I wanted to also go over. So as David kind of mentioned, when you go in here, there'll be character limits, and as you're typing things in, it should tell you how many characters you have left before it won't allow any more. It'll truncate it, and believe me, it will do that. And then the other thing is when you get to where your budget is, especially where we're seeing here, it says project funding, project cost information. These systems are set up so that they are going to automatically calculate whether these things are becoming equal. So if you're putting in there that your project is going to cost you $100,000, and again, it's wanting you to break it into the different types of costs, whether it be equipment, training, or whatever. If you also have up here in the project funding an amount equal to $100,000, it is not going to take it. So please be sure that you have your budget completely balanced as to how we're paying for this, and it's got to equal out all of your expenses. And again, if your project is going to cost a total of $100,000, make sure you know specifically where that $100,000 is being made up in. So, because even when you get past this page with the project cost information and the project funding sources, you're going to run into a budget sheet. And again, it's not going to let you go any further if all those numbers don't add up to what you said on this page. So again, like to David's point about doing this on paper first, I would really encourage you to do that. So, okay, so a little bit more generic information about the grant. So I don't know if you're aware that there's no match required for the grant. Other thing is they aren't actually putting a limit on how much you can ask for. I also did not see what I call a grant floor. So
I don't know that there's a minimum number that you have to ask for either, so, I would assume there is none. Your projects do have to be complete by December 31st of 2026 though. So there will be a part in there where we'll ask you for your timeline and make sure that you have everything completed in your timeline as of December 31st, 2026. Now, that doesn't mean you have to have the project go that far. If your project can be done in 12 months, that's fine. It does not have to be a 2-year project, but it does have to be finished by 2026, December 31st. So that's just kind of some overarching information there before you even get started. As David said, you know, the eligible applicants are units of government, nonprofit organizations, community action agencies, you know, those are, you know, food pantries or anything. Yeah, we would do food pantries or any kind of grassroots organization that's working on social issues. Multi-purpose community facilities, libraries. If your school is designated as a community school per se, and you're allowing the community to come in and use your facilities, you are probably eligible for this too. So, and then under eligible projects, and I really wanted to bring this to your attention too, because when I went through the application, the way this overview looks, it says for a project to be eligible, it must meet any of the following criteria. But you know, the project has to enable work, education, and health monitoring. So you have to make sure that you're at least touching on all 3 of those areas, even if it's primarily for health. Say it's for telehealth reasons. You know, one of the sentences you can add or part of the narrative would be, you know, these devices could also be utilized to access unemployment sites or remote job opportunities or remote education opportunities. So at least address that in your narrative, even if it's just strictly you're wanting it telehealth. Just knowing that those units can be used for these other opportunities is what they want to see there. One of the other things that I think they're kind of leaning toward a little bit, and again, I went through this NOFO pretty extensively, is they're wanting to see how this might address anything that was exacerbated by the COVID pandemic. So, you know, when we think about how COVID exacerbated the digital divide, and we saw folks that didn't have digital devices, they couldn't access healthcare, they couldn't access food deliveries, they couldn't access, you know, remote work, they couldn't access school per se. So any of those stats that you can find on how COVID made that worse in those areas where there's devices lacking is going to be extremely important for you to include in your reasoning for this project, the project need. It doesn't specifically call that out, but when I was looking at the scoring criteria, I did notice that they were kind of touching on that quite a bit. So again, let's look a little bit at, and I know there's nothing for you to see right now, but if I just raise your hand if you have a question or need to stop me or something. So permitted and eligible equipment will include equipment installed, such as access points, routers, repeaters, but then it also should include the actual devices that will be used by the end user, such as laptops, tablets, and even desktop personal computers are eligible costs. Another component that you want to make sure that you put in your narrative is a training activity. This training activity is for those end users. So any households that you're projecting to serve, that you're going to say you're going to loan this equipment out to, you have to provide a training component to that, to allow them to learn how to use the equipment, to learn how to access the internet, yeah, that will be required in your narrative. If you don't have it, you're going to reject your project. Fortunately, the grant funds can pay for that part of it though. So if you hire a trainer or you hire a consultant to come in, that can certainly be part of your budget. Do you have any questions?
Oh, we have a, Anita, we have a. Anita, if you want to go ahead and unmute, you can ask a question. Anita, if you're not able to unmute, you can also ask your question in the chat.
David, I need to get to come up and do that.
Are you needing to get access to yours?
Yeah, we'll just do it.
Okay. Yeah. Google.
So this next thing that I want to go over with all of you results from me looking at the weighted scoring criteria that they're going to use on your narrative. And I found that the biggest weight that they're going to apply to your proposal comes from project need and demonstrating that need. And there are certain things that they're going to want to see, such as unemployment rates, poverty levels. If your school is in a free and reduced lunch area or designation, any of those things they're going to see. If English is not the primary language, if the number of households in your area is primarily there's not a lot of internet subscriptions there, or a lot of laptop or device ownership is what I'm trying to say. You're going to need to demonstrate all of that. And when you do get that data in your narrative, be sure to quote where you got that data from. So according to census.gov, my area has 20% poverty rate. And if you don't quote the source, they're not going to pay any attention to what you're saying. So, and a little bit with regard to data. So I'm going to say this in a strategic way. I don't know how many projects out there that are going to be proposed are for the entire county, or if they're going to be at a more granular level, say, you know, a neighborhood, or, you know, if we have a very localized library and they're only going to want to serve their constituents in the library, that area is very much smaller than Polk County. So when you look at your project, I really want you to consider who you're going to serve. Because if you're not going to serve the entire county, it might behoove you to pull the data just from your localized area, because sometimes the county numbers can be a little bit misconceiving in that it looks better than maybe your area does. So for instance, you know, Polk County might have a 94% subscription rate to internet. However, your census tract area might have a 78%. So you can see how the difference would be regarded in being demonstrated there. So again, please watch what you want, who you want to serve, and what your catchment area is, because again, it might be better for you to look at just the data for your small area compared to the entire county.
Carrie, before you get into the website, we did get that question through. Their question was, do we believe that this would also fund security clearances?
It will not.
I think I use security cameras for monitoring patients who are yeah,
So that I'm not in all.
Yeah. Yeah, that's gonna be an ineligible use, unfortunately, of this grant stream, because they want the devices to actually go to households, basically. So, and placing, security cameras isn't gonna be an eligible use of this.
Now, if the individual though, back to this use case, they're going to have connectivity on a, like say, an iPad or something with a camera. Would that be, so we're gonna, through an assessment, it is determined that this group needs that kind of monitoring or assistance? Would then that change that use case a bit so that that device for those individuals for connectivity and for the appropriate monitoring for a healthcare and training component, would that then be eligible?
I would say, I'm gonna say maybe, and I'm splitting hairs with you a little bit, I'm sorry about that, but the devices would have to be open for that patient to then utilize for other things, such as accessing an educational website if they want to, or if they want to access, an online job application. So the answer would be yes, but they would then have to be able to use the device for those other reasons too, because they have to touch on all three areas for them to be eligible. That makes sense.
There's a way to craft the narrative to be able to make that eligible. So they would have to be able to use it for other purposes, but for the overall monitoring, but just for a camera that would not. But for the multi-use, it would absolutely be included.
His is more of this, what he does during the day, but it's what he also, because that's our way to do it. It's supposed to be. Now, so those are people that you have to monitor, it would be like
Like a camera within the facility, like a ring, something of that nature, in and of itself would not be. In the other use case where it could be, the device setup that could have multiple uses, then it could be.
Yes.
So I would I would suggest applying. And that way you get the practice of doing it so that even if it's not covered in this round, those that are coming up later this year, you could just copy and paste that application for that purpose if you got denied. Does that help, Terry?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions?
They're just saying if you have any more audience questions, if we could repeat them out loud because they're having.
Oh, that's a good point. Thank you.
So again, I'm because I can't see who all is online. I don't know who organizations are out there and how much you guys have used for data for things, but I really like to use census.gov for gathering different pieces of data, especially things like this. I can find so much information in one place. I can get it down to granular level, whether that be a census tract or countywide or an address or something like that. So I kind of wanted to introduce a little bit of navigating that website for your benefit. So again, because the application is going to be highly scored or highly weighted to demonstrating your need in your community, you're going to want to put a lot of effort into this part of your developing your grant proposal, and that's gathering the data on where you're going to be providing the services. So I brought you to this website. It's census.gov. I'm going to walk you through it a little bit, and then what Tara can do on the after this is over, we can provide you with a bit of a flow chart and how to navigate this website if you find that useful. So, and you could also use this for other grants too. You have to gather data if you've got to, make a case to your stakeholders or anything like that. This is a really helpful tool. and it's free, so I like it. But the first place that I'm gonna go to when I get to this website is just under data and maps. And once we get to this page, we are gonna go down here, click on this blue bar where it says go to data.census.gov. And I don't know how many, I'm gonna date myself on this one, but this data all used to be able to be found under American Community Survey or American Fact Finder. It was moved a long time ago, so it's all in one place now, which is good. So we're gonna click that blue bar. Under Explore Census Data, we're going to click on Advanced Search. So here we are, and this is what you're gonna see first. So what I would advise you to do is go up to this little search bar here. You're gonna wanna type in, for this particular grant, you're gonna wanna type in selected social characteristics. You'll see it'll give you a bit of a drop-down menu as to some things that, you know, maybe you wanna look at. I like to go to the DPD 02. So we're gonna click on that. And this is actually data from the United States, but it'll give you a little bit of an example of what you can find in here. It'll give you the total households, the marital status of the households. I'm trying to get this to work. If you drop down a little bit further, you can find, you know, school enrollment. Educational attainment is a really, really useful piece of data to also include, because studies show that the lower educational attainment an area has overall, the less likely they are to be connected to broadband. And that also justifies your need for broadband. So if there's low educational attainment and we can get broadband in there, or we can get personal devices in there, then we can potentially increase that percentage. We have veteran status. We also have disability status. That is another very, very important piece of data that you want to keep for your narrative on this. Again, because personal devices and broadband are extremely important to those who are what David called, you know, homebound or have a disability of some type. So if we've got a high number of disabled citizens in an area, again, that's more corroboration for the need for your project. Now, if we go down here a little bit more, we're going to look at language spoken at home. Again, this is really important, especially if there's any projects out there where you're thinking about purchasing Spanish translating devices for your constituents. This is going to tell you how many people are there where English is not their primary language. So that demonstrates your need for like maybe a translation device. A little bit further. And so this area down here at the bottom, you're going to see it's called computers and internet use. Again, this is a very important thing for you to have when you write your narrative. You want to be able to tell them how many of your households in your area actually have a computer, how many do not, how many have broadband internet subscriptions, and how many do not. So right now, again, we're looking at the United States. But let's say we want to look at one of our census tracts within the community or within the county. And so census tracts, for those of you that don't know, are just smaller, that's what you call smaller blocks of unit rather than a county. Go down into census tract level, and you can go into block tracts and things like that. So we're going to hit geography here. And I'm going to scroll down here, and I want to use a census tract. I'm going to click on census tract. Census tract. And I know if you've never used this can be really, really confusing, but, back. For some reason, they went to Big County, Florida. And start.
Yeah, just start over. That's your better bet.
Also show you how to find what maybe your census tract might be.
I clicked on tomorrow.
Jumping right.
Yeah, it's like clicking the one under it. Now you're on Florida.
Went straight
There we go. Now we're in Florida.
now in Florida. Here's Polk. Okay, so as you can see, we have all these census tracts listed for Polk County. And again, if you want to know where your particular organization sits in what census tract, all you have to do is Google census tract map for Florida or for Polk County, Florida. And it'll bring up this big map and it'll list all these different census tracts. And you kind of just look on that map to see where your organization sits, and it'll sit within the census tract boundary, and that number will be right there. So the number, the census tract that I like to pick here is 11603. And I'm thinking this might be in Kathleen area, I'm 100% sure. So, but as you can see now, instead of me getting all that information for the whole United States, it's giving me all that information just for that area. And let's say, for example, it's the Kathleen area. I don't know that 100%. But this is telling me 855 households in this census tract. I go all the way down. Again, total households in the census tract is 855, with a computer 762, with broadband internet subscription 684. As you can see, that is significantly less. That percentage is significantly less than Polk County as a whole. So that's why I'm saying if you are a smaller organization and you're not going to be serving the entire county, please go into your specific area to pull the numbers, because the need is going to show high than it will for the county as a whole. Do we have any questions about that? I know that's a lot. We're going to send you the flow chart how to get there. And then I want to show you also what a census tract looks like. It's loading. Okay, again, it's a lot, but you just go in and enlarge it a little bit. And this is Polk County. These are all the different census tracts in Polk County. 16 election numbers. So if I'm in the Bartow area and I want to write a proposal for a project in Bartow, I'm only going to pull out this 153.01 to capture my data. Because again, it's going to demonstrate a higher need than if you use the county as a whole. And I do this all the time when I write grants, because unfortunately Polk County has now been reclassified as an urban county. And so that precludes us from some rural grants. However, I have found some loopholes with that. If I go down to the more granular level and get my numbers at the more granular level like that, as opposed to. What's the question? I'm sorry. So the question is, well, Polk County has been declared urban county now, whereas before it was a rural county. And if you'll notice, when you go to look for funding opportunities for things like this, they really want to see a rural designation. And so when I write grants myself, I now will go to the granular level because that can qualify me under that rural designation easier than the county as a whole. I think I'm about, my part's about over, but if there's no questions, so I'm gonna turn it back over to David.
Along that line, what Terry was talking about is, the rural designation for each of the criteria that are listed. There are points, literally points awarded. And the points awarded can be if you have a rural designation. What we found when we did ours is there is a significant part of our county, specifically in the southern part, where the population is a little more dispersed. And while the rural designation does not follow specifically for the entire county, we've been very fortunate being able to say that due to the population density, that this area has previously qualified for rural designation, and they have given us the point for that, excuse me. I know this can be a little overwhelming. Don't let it be. I do want to give a little bit of clarity. As an example, at the literacy summit, we had talked about translation devices. Could those be leveraged? A component of this is that a library, for an example, could apply for the funding for the devices and the connectivity for those translation devices. They don't always have to be given to the end user. They have to be for healthcare, to help interact and be able to give them access to healthcare, workforce development, and educational opportunities. That's an extremely easy, I don't want to say sell, but demonstrative use for a translation device at a community facility such as a library. So you can do those. I was doing a little more digging while off here a moment ago on the security camera side. The applications can be for community facilities. Absolutely attempt that application because those type of things that can be exacerbated by health monitoring is actually listed. I found it while we were waiting. So what I'm saying is don't let some of the higher level pieces scare you from applying. There are two big components here. One is for the community facilities, hospital, healthcare, libraries, schools, as Terry was mentioning. And then there are also those for the individual. We're thrilled because I just got clarity to that a moment ago, is there are no minimums. There are no maximums. There is a maximum amount that is going to be given out, which is the 13 million. Highly recommend you don't supply a grant application in the 13 million because there is a limited a number of dollars to be given. But if you need 80 devices that are $1,000 a pop, and you can include the connectivity. I think Terry mentioned the wireless access points, the broadband access. Those costs can be up to and including, if I remember it correctly, Terry, even the administrative pieces can be covered. So if you need, to have somebody come in part-time and help you manage that, absolutely, that can be included as part of your grant ask. Right, there's a percentage. It can't be more. I can't remember.
It can be more than 10%.
Okay, it can't be more than 10% of the overall ask. So yeah, don't try to fund an entire position on an $80,000 ask, because you're gonna get 8K as kind of your top limit on that. So it cannot be more than that. Let me slide this up. I had a couple other notes. We talked about the no max, no minimum, other than and no match. Most grant funding opportunities do ask for a match. And so this one does not require a match. So I really did want to open it up to the floor. I know we are on here for a couple of hours, and we weren't sure it would take that long depending on the questions, those type of things. So we did want to open the floor if there are any questions. No, go ahead, please.
And it has to be.
I'm unfamiliar, but so what is PBS? The question is, there is an initiative they're working on. It includes work with a company called PBS. Oh, the PBS. I'm sorry. So leave it to me to be dense. Sorry, the public broadcasting system.
I was doing research, I found they took a look. Actually, we have to. This is fine. Then somebody looked at that. We were fine. I'm a genealogy. And I do it pretty good. And I'm just doing this. And what we do is we have a staging for seniors and baby boomers. But now here late, especially after COVID, we got a lot of young people. So now we got the big and we don't know what to do with ourselves. So we even got people that were incarcerated. So that's another stream. See, that they're just coming from everywhere. So we were looking for, broadcasting the we call it. So when this came up, I said, well, I'm gonna ask if this would include something as big.
Probably not, because it's not really geared toward the digital connectivity. You could, in theory, find. Sorry, the question was. I'm assuming there's devices and charges for the broadcasting of this, and putting that together. Could that be considered a funding stream for these at-risk communities? Am I stating it relatively oversimplified? But my apologies.
Well, it's exactly right. They wouldn't get in there any other way.
Right. So they would not have access to this information in any other way, including those at risk from incarceration, those type of things. There may be a use case that we could find for that, and I'd be happy to kind of work with you offline. That's really in that middle thing, because it's really around the connectivity and the actual devices. So let maybe reach out to me after this so we can talk about your specific use case and see what we can do. Thank you for the question. Yes.
I have a couple of online questions.
Yes.
Gladys Roberts from the Polk County Library Cooperative said that her libraries came back very excited about the translation devices. They hadn't run into them before. And are there any examples of those devices, brand model, etc.? They would want to provide for ones that have been found to be the most successful. Thanks for cluing this in. So I guess she's asking if anyone has any input on the best types of translation devices that they wouldn't mind sharing.
Gladys, you're a great partner. You're asking me my IT question. We have at the county have not specifically used any translation devices I'm aware of, but I know that during the literacy summit, there were a number of individuals who did have some specifics. So if any of you are online with us and can share that, that would be very, very helpful. We, as far as the county is concerned, I'm not aware that we have done any. We're looking at ours as well. I know that our behavioral health group is looking at it as well as our case management in our IHC group or indigent healthcare.
I don't know what the rules are for state funding regarding procurement. So I would hesitate in your proposal to name a specific brand that you're applying to just in case the federal procurement rules apply to this funding also, because they're gonna want to see a competitive search for equipment. And so you're better off not even pigeonholing yourself right off the bat. Just keep it like you're going to purchase this type of equipment, but don't name the brand.
And give a range, like we need 400 or 100 of these at $800, which is the approximate cost that we have found for translation devices.
Yes.
Good point. So, using, having the data, so if somebody asks where you got it from, that you're ready to present what that was. But as far as saying, I'm going to use a Samsung 9280, it's probably not the best bet because they're going to go, oh, did you do the competitive bids and all of that kind of stuff? Because when you can get into the actual purchasing after you get your funding. Good point. Thank you, Terry.
And then another question, and Cindy, you might want to expound on this a little, is she asked, can part of the technology be for the organization itself? Cindy, did you want to explain what you were thinking of there in a little bit more detail so we can maybe help you out there?
Sure. Thanks for taking my question. So if we were, so we're an adult residential community for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And I heard Terry say that this was trying to go to as many households as we could. So if we have a program that we need technology for our residents to have technology, and having newer technology and maybe some of our technology isn't necessarily up to measure, could we include one or two devices in that to be part of that to help with the connectivity and all of those things?
The answer is absolutely yes. Terry's like, I would say yes. That is our grant writers hedging.
Okay.
So thank you. But no, that is a really, really good use case. You've hit on all, and that's a good one because it hits on all of the pillars. We're doing education, it's healthy, it's health, it's all of those. So absolutely. So
Okay, great.
please do. Great questions.
And Debbie asked, is the purpose of the devices to loan to people or can we give it to them to keep?
The answer is yes. Is that that there's a caution here. If it's for you in your facility, my apologies, Terry, then that's what I was considering the loan. If they're not taking it out, you can do that. You can apply for that. But you can equally apply for them to have it and own it. Is that correct? Oh, sorry. Give clarity. No.
No. So it's my understanding, and we can go back and clarify this for you, and then send an update to in writing all of you. My understanding is that the equipment is going to be a loan basis only outward, and that you will retain the actual ownership of the devices. And this is because of it being from federal funds initially, in that they are very much concerned about inventory control and what happens to devices. So they're going to make whomever receives the grant be responsible for inventorying those devices and making sure that they're maintaining ownership. And there's another reason behind that too, because they don't want the people that are receiving the devices to be responsible for repairs on them or updates on them. So as the recipient or the subrecipient of these funds, you can apply to kind of have that fund available to fix equipment as it needs it or to have them updated. They don't want those costs given over to the consumer, so that's why they're doing it on a loan basis. That's my understanding, but if it's different, we're gonna
Well,
see.
yeah, we'll double check it. There's kind of a fine line there, and I understand what you're saying, that officially the ownership is retained, I believe, by the agency. But there is no stipulation that it must be returned annually, every 6 months, something of that nature, not like a loaner or a library loan. It is designed basically to turn over, but back to Terry's point, maintenance and those type of things can be included actually in your grant application. A great question, but we'll get clarity to that, send it out.
And we have a domestic violence and transitional housing nonprofit. They are in need of new computers in order to be Windows 12 operational. Can they write for this grant for their clients using the 3 criteria?
If it's for the clients, the answer is yes. If it is for the administrative uses within your agency, that answer is no. So it's a little, that is my understanding, Terry, do you concur with that? Okay, there is a distinction there. So if, I can't say I'm IT and we have, we service the, so can we apply for the grant? We cannot to just refurb our own equipment. But if we were doing an outbound piece, like I said, with IHC or another agency, then we would absolutely be able to do that. That's why we in IT, it's what's funny, we're doing this webinar and we are not eligible to apply for any of these on this one. But we're happy to share what we do know with you on that front. Does that answer your question? All right, great questions. Anything additional?
I have a quick question. Will the county have any part in the review process, or this is going to the state at the state level?
This is going to the state at the state level.
Okay.
For those of you who are familiar, I think Terry used the term NOFO, which is the Notice of Funding Opportunity. It is based upon the federal guidelines, even though it's state, and it will go directly to the state. It will not be reviewed in any way, shape, or form by us. We have no real input other than to help you in any way we can apply. We want to see as much of these dollars coming in to Polk County as we can.
Another question, do we know at the time of any grants for like that administrative technology that this one would not qualify for? Do we know of anything out there for that?
I know nothing specifically around the broadband, the Department of Commerce broadband. I have heard, depending on what group you're with, and as an example, criminal justice, there are other grants that are available at a federal level, but they don't apply with these guidelines. They usually have matches, and they're primarily with the Department of Homeland Security has been the one to issue those. So you may want to go out there and just do a Google search on Homeland Security grant funding or criminal justice grant funding. There has been a significant amount of money available through that IIJA grant funding. There, 64 billion was just for set aside for these type of grants, but there was additional funding for others. There's been some cybersecurity grants that are outside of this that we at the county have applied for and have received that fall within those specific areas. I hope that helps, but I would definitely look at because there is a bunch out there.
And Gladys asked, you guys gave her a price range on those translation devices. Was that just a guesstimate?
That was just a guesstimate. Actually, I think that was a number that I had heard at the Literacy Summit. I think from one of the individuals at the library co-op that they had looked at, and they were like around $800. But I am a man of a certain age, and therefore my memory is not quite as clear as it once was. So, but yeah, if anybody could share with Gladys what devices you were looking at. I know that other members of the library cooperative, as well as some of the individuals at the Literacy Summit, were active in that arena. Great question. Anything else?
Chat. If you have any questions online, if you'll just write in the chat or go ahead and raise your hand.
All right, hearing none. I would first like to thank Terry for her time and attention and the research that she has done to assist us and to be here today. So thank you very, very much. Your help is always appreciated. She is but one person. That's another question I usually get is, can Terry help me? The answer is no. She's got a lot to do, but we're happy to assist if you have just onesie Tuesday questions. Don't get me wrong, but we can't, like, Terry can't do your grant for you. As a matter of fact, she doesn't even do ours. We work together and she reviews them. So we're always happy and appreciative of Terry's time and her effort. Also, a special thank you to our partners at Polk Vision, Tara, and I saw Mary Beth on with us. We are proud and happy. We just thought we were going to be sitting in on the Literacy Summit and was very, very honored to actually get to participate and to see that there's a real need in our communities for grant funding around devices and connectivity. We want to see as many people get that as we can. Terry, do you have anything?
I do not. Again, we'll just give you as much information as we can and how to get that data. And Tara will follow up with all of that.
All right, thank you. Stacy, you have anything?
No.
All right. Well, thank you all. Take care. If you have anything, follow up with us. We'll be happy to get back to you.
Hey, David.
Yeah, please.
Hey, sorry, this is Mary Beth. I just wanted to jump in really quickly. I have been listening, and this has been great questions and really encouraging that you all have attended today. I did want to make a note just because of some, we like to say like, oh, the federal money is falling from the sky right now, but you have to be ready to catch it. So one of a completely separate federal program, but could have some crossover with this group. So I just wanted to throw it out there. If anyone has ideas or requests related to technology that would improve roadway or pedestrian safety, that they should really be reaching out to our Polk Transportation Planning Organization right now. There are some federal programs that include what we call demonstration projects. So that gets to go under kind of the planning category, and it's a little bit more simple than like a full-blown construction project, but related to roadway safety, pedestrian safety. They would love to talk to you, and there might be some opportunities there.
Good point. Excellent. Thank you, Mary Beth. Thank you for joining us today. Mary Beth co-chairs the Smart Communities team with us. You will probably be hearing a lot more about these grant funding opportunities as the notice funding becomes available for, I mentioned it before, what we refer to as BEAD, which is the Broadband Equity and Digital Access, and the Digital Adoption and Use. That's going to be where some of the big monies are. If you need some assistance with getting digital navigators into a facility that can help people use that, that's part of this process. So let's make sure that we get all of this done. And even if you don't get this funding, it would be a good exercise to be ready for the next rounds that are coming forth. All right. Thank you, Mary Beth. Appreciate it. Thank you for being with us. Thank you, everyone. And we will talk to you soon. Good luck in your grant applications. Let us know if we can help.